Hi everyone. So with this whiteboard, I would like to express my thoughts about pelvic floor muscles and tension, basic tension, relaxation and kind of just talk through some thoughts that I have. And like I said, it's always fun to draw and a nice way to maybe share thoughts. So let's get started. I guess this video I've been wanting to share for a little while, and then been hearing some people's questions talking about it. So one way I would like to just express how I'm feeling, share with you guys, and maybe help contribute to the conversation will be this here. So I love pelvic floor muscles visually because when we just think about them as a hammock or a sling, they are just that. I'm going to exaggerate lines to leave room for diagram and just explaining. So this in no way is scaled to real life or my interpretation of the amount of movement that can happen either in an inferior or superior direction. So an upward, which would be superior, and a downward, which would be inferior. So just essentially up and down. So here we go. So here, pelvic floor muscles, like I said, and why don't we just call this resting? So I've heard a number of different terms that I feel like everybody is using to describe just a basic state of being, maybe the type of activation similar to sleeping, just before sleeping. I'm not sure if that would change positionally based on gravity and body contents, but here we go. We're resting. This is basic tension. This is potentially what people will call relaxation, and that's another word that I think is an interesting word to use because, like I said, if this is just basic tension, is that the same as being relaxed? I guess we use that term for other areas of the body, but again, I'm not really sure if that's an accurate way to describe. So anyways, if this is where we ideally want to be hanging out most of the time when we're not active, because I would argue that this would then change, say, versus if we were resting, seated, maybe walking, obviously running, and jumping. What about falling? Like from above or hitting the ground? I'm not sure. That'd be interesting. Skydiving. Anyways, so if this is where we want to be when we're in a resting, more relaxed state, then maybe this is where we end up if we consciously activate. So this, in my mind, is a concentric contraction. So it means that the muscles are contracting and shortening. So if we use the diagram of a hammock or a sling, if we tension in whatever direction we want to, and the pelvic floor can move unilaterally of itself. So this side could theoretically pull and move differently based on the pull of this side. And I think that comes into when we have alternating leg movements. So anyways, so you could have whatever pull you wanted, but a concentric contraction means that the muscles are contracting, tensioning, if you will, and shortening, okay? So we are getting this upward direction there, but we can also move from that resting or relaxation. But again, I'm not sure about that term because when we look at being able to move down, a little wobbly pelvic floor, this is an increase of tension, but it is moving downward. And I think that the word relaxation implies almost like this downward movement of the pelvic floor, which is true. and in my thoughts, I guess appropriate from here to there. But if we think about relaxation, I think that it's important to identify that we've got this other downward movement that can occur, and that is going to be an eccentric contraction. Again, that downward. So an eccentric muscle contraction is going to be when the muscles are tensioning or activating and the muscles are actually lengthening. Okay, so concentric, tensioning, activating, whatever word we want to use, and shortening. We do have then an isometric contraction that I'll share here in a second, but shortening, lengthening, which makes sense when we look at this hammock diagram as a visual. And again, why I think it is helpful. And like I said, then we've got an isometric muscle contraction. And this isometric muscle contraction, I believe, is a range because you could isometrically hold. So isometric means that the muscles are tensioning and maintaining their length. And so you could be more shortened, you could be more lengthened, and hold isometrically there. So there is some information about, contracting concentrically upward by 50% and holding versus at 100%, 50%, and holding. And then that same could be true, for an eccentric contraction as well. That could be isometric at a lower excursion. So, that's kind of like my basic understanding. We can put ISO of that and just in my head. And then, for me, it kind of helps think about, makes sense then potentially what contractions are happening when, very loosely when we talk about impact, and then maybe also when we're doing exercise based on managing pressure and stuff like that. So, and then, I think that then we have clients that come in and they're experiencing, let's see if I do write things out with my left hand. So let's see how this goes. So their resting is maybe actually somewhere between what we would classify as someone's, actual muscle length and movement. So this would be their resting is here. And this would be maybe, like I said, more normal or standard. We'll just put a star. I'm not sure what to put there. And so, I'm sure we've all had clients where we come in, we talk about hypertonic. Okay. So in my mind, when we look at the diagram, I'm seeing, I'm going to blow this up visually here. This is fun. So I'm seeing that there's this much space between their resting, which I'm considering as elevated, and actual, neutral. Okay? Oh, you can't even see that. There. Okay? So I'm not sure. I hope this isn't overcomplicating things, but in my head, visually, this is what I see, and I've drawn diagrams for clients. It doesn't get this elaborate. This is in greater detail with the use of terms that are maybe not as popular or common for individuals who don't work in this field, or healthcare providers or fitness pros. So, it might just be something like, right now your body's interpretation of resting is here, and maybe adding some range to the amount that your pelvic floor can move. So this is maybe the amount that they're utilizing right now. If we shift that down, and you have more excursion within that. And I mean, this is one way, and I am selective when I decide to share kind of images like this, because We know images can be powerful. Otherwise, just using words, hands. I think lots of people, we're all used to using our hands at this point to kind of describe, our interpretation of what the muscles are doing. So I hope this helps to explain or maybe provoke some questions on my thoughts. There's none of this is obviously research based, but my understanding and my basic clinical information stems from courses and literature taken through schools. So this is not set in stone, always changing, and just a fun way to share what's going on in my brain. So ask some questions. What are your guys' thoughts?